Welcome back to the Designer Blueprint series. My name is Elizabeth and I've been designing crochet patterns for almost a decade. In past episodes of this series, we went over finding inspiration, choosing the right yarn, and how different fibers behave, writing your first pattern, testing, tech editing, and photographing your finished project. Today, we're going to talk about the process of submitting your pattern to a magazine. We'll discuss the exclusivity of a pattern, finding the right publication, writing a strong proposal, meeting submission guidelines, and what happens if your pattern gets accepted. Let's dive into it. Exclusive versus non-exclusive. Before you start looking for publications, it's important to understand the difference between exclusive and non-exclusive designs as it impacts your rights as a designer and how you can use the pattern in the future. An exclusive designs means that the magazine has full rights to publish and distribute the pattern. Because the magazine is securing the right to be the sole publisher of your designs, they usually handle professional photography and editing. The terms of exclusivity varies by publication. Some may allow you to release the pattern yourself after a waiting period, often ranging from 6 months to a year after publication. Others retain permanent rights, meaning the pattern will always belong to the magazine and you cannot republish it anywhere else. If you choose to submit to a magazine that only wants permanent rights, ensure that you are compensated properly for your hard work. Exclusive designs are typically compensated with one-time payment, and some magazines may also offer royalties if the pattern continues to generate revenue. But this is rarely the case. A non-exclusive designs means that while the magazine has the right to publish the pattern, you as the designer retain ownership and can sell or redistribute it on your own platform at the same time or shortly after publication. This is less common in major print magazines, but may be an option for online publications, smaller indie magazines, or digital pattern collections. Some magazines may offer lower payments because you are not giving up sole publishing rights, while others may offer exposure as the primary benefit rather than direct financial compensation. The advantage of a non-exclusive agreement is that you can maximize your earning by selling the pattern independently through platforms like Ravelry and your own websites. You are also free to modify or expand upon the design in the future, which is not always possible with exclusive contracts. The choice between exclusive and non-exclusive agreements depend on your goal as a designer. If you want a professionally edited and photographed pattern, as some will allow you to use their photography and the fully edited pattern to self-publish after the contracted period, an exclusive contract with a reputable magazine may be a great option. However, if maintaining control over your pattern and having the ability to sell it independently is more important to you, a non-exclusive agreement might be the best choice. Finding the right magazine. Each magazine has its own aesthetic, audience, and submission guidelines. Before submitting, it is important to research different publications to see which one aligns with your design style and audience. If your design are geared towards trendy millennials, a magazine featuring more traditional designs isn't the right fit for you. Most magazines have a dedicated page on their website with submission instructions, including deadlines, formatting requirements, and themes for upcoming issues. Some release detailed calls to submissions several times a year, outlining what type of patterns they're looking for in each issue. If you don't see guidelines on their website, you may need to contact the editorial team or check their social media for updates. Before we start working on the proposal, we need to discuss the timeline, submission deadlines, and lead time. Magazines work months in advance, meaning that submission deadlines often aligns with seasons far ahead of publication. A winter theme patterns might need to be submitted in July, while a summer issue could have a deadline in December. Be aware that deadlines for different stages of the process may vary. Some magazines set an initial proposal deadline followed by separate deadlines for pattern approval, sample creation, and final edits. If your design is accepted, you may have only a few weeks to complete the final sample and pattern, so plan accordingly. If you are submitting to multiple magazines, track your submission in a spreadsheet to keep up with deadlines, responses, and design commitments. If a magazine requires exclusivity and you submitted the same design somewhere else, you'll need to withdraw it from the other publications once it's accepted. Ensure you read the submission call in its entirety. Editors receive hundreds of submissions for each theme and can't reach out to each designer to ask for additional information, especially if it was already listed in the submission call as a requirement. Failing to follow instruction can result in your proposal being overlooked even if your design is strong. Before we dive into the proposal, a very important thing to keep in mind is that you shouldn't choose too many fonts. Choose one or two that goes with your branding and go from there. A typical submission includes a sketch and or swatch of your design, a written description explaining its construction and unique features, and details on the type of yarn you plan to use. Some magazines require a full pattern draft, while others accept proposal based on concepts alone. Some publications provide a standardized submission form that asks for detailed information about the pattern, such as estimated yardage, stitch count, intended skill level, and construction techniques. Others may require you to include a brief designer bio, outline your experience, design style, and previous publications if applicable. Now, your sketch does not have to be a highly detailed illustration, but it should effectively communicate the overall shape, fit, and design elements of the piece. Some designers choose to annotate their sketches, point out key features like stitch patterns, shaping details, or special construction methods. If possible, include multiple angles, or a simple schematic can provide even more insight into your design. Swatches showcase the texture and drape of your design. While a basic swatch gives an idea of stitch definition and gauge, going a step further by making a small mock-up of your key sections, such as lace motif, colorwork repeats, and edging details, can make your submission stand out. It is a good practice to use a similar yarn to the one you intended on making your sample with, as it gives a truer sense of what the finished piece is going to look like. Block your swatch before submitting to ensure the final fabric looks its best, especially if you're working with lace and drapey yarn. The written description is where you make a strong case for your design. Beyond explaining its construction, it helps highlight potential modifications and why it suits the magazine audience. Does it have a unique stitch pattern? Is it beginner friendly or ideal for experienced crocheter looking for a challenge? Will it be easy to customize for different body types or personal style? If a magazine provides a mood board with inspirational images and keywords, pay close attention to those cues. Repeat some of the objectives the magazine highlighted in their brief in your description as well. If the magazine follows seasonal theme, consider how your yarn choice and construction fit within the framework. For summer issues, lightweight yarn like cotton and linen and open work stitches are often favored, while fall and winter publications may lean towards heavier textures. It may be a good idea to color in your sketch to show the colors you are intending on using in your final piece, especially if the yarn colors that you have on hand for your swatch are not the same ones you intend of using. Some magazines require inspiration notes as part of the submission. While not always mandatory, including a brief explanation of what inspired the piece, whether it is architecture, nature, or vintage fashion, can add depth to the submission. I will link my personal submission proposal template, which you may customize to meet your needs, in the description block below. If the publication asks for a complete pattern, ensure that it follows their preferred format. Check for a style guide or review their past issues. Some common elements they may require include standard crochet abbreviations. Many magazines follow the Craft Yarn Council guidelines. Clear instructions for all sizes if submitting a wearable items. Gauge information so crocheters can match their intended sizes. Yarn recommendation including weight, fiber content, and estimated yardage. File and format presentation. Many magazines request proposal in PDF or Word format. Avoid sending links to Google Docs unless explicitly allowed. Some publications require specific file names as shown on the screen. Others have a page limit. So keep your submissions concise. Sketch and swatches should be clear and well lit. Some magazines request high-resolution image, while others may accept basic snapshots. Before sending your proposal, double-check that it meets every formatting requirements listed in the guidelines. Even small mistakes such as submitting a JPEG instead of PDF or using the wrong file name can be the reason your submission is overlooked. What happens if your design gets accepted? If your design is accepted, the next step is to sign a contract. The contract will include important information such as your compensation, deadline, and rights to your pattern. It's essential to read the contract thoroughly to understand what is expected of you and what rights you retain or give up. If you have questions, it's okay to reach out, but always check the submission page, contract, and other documents first to ensure you're not asking something that has already been answered. When emailing an editor, keep your message concise, and polite. The final payment amount isn't always set in stone. You and the magazine have to agree on a price before moving forward. If the offer doesn't align with your expectations or the work required, you can always try to negotiate or walk away if it's not the right fit. While some magazines have fixed rates, others may be open to discussion, especially for more complex designs. Always review the terms carefully before signing the contract to ensure you're comfortable with the compensation and rights involved. One of the most important deadlines to keep in mind will be the due date for your final pattern submission. Some magazines have in-house tech editors who will review your pattern, while others expect you to submit a final version that has already been tech edited. Typically, you cannot share or discuss the design publicly until the magazine releases it. This includes posting progress photo on social media, sharing details with your audience, or offering it for testing unless your magazine explicitly allows it. If testing is required, you may need to arrange it privately and ensure testers understand the confidentiality agreement. Always check your contract for any restrictions on sharing or promoting the design before making any decisions. Magazines handle samples in different ways. Some have in-house sample makers, meaning you only need to submit the pattern itself, and they will create a sample photography. Others require you to provide your own finished sample for photography. Those that operate on non-exclusive basis may require you to provide professional photographs of the finished sample. Some magazines offer yarn support, providing you with the yarn needed to make the sample. Others expect you to purchase your own material, so factor that into your planning. If you need to submit a sample, follow the magazine requirements carefully. This includes making sure your work is well blocked and professionally finished, choosing the right carrier, filling out the custom form correctly if submitting overseas, and packaging the sample to specification. If you are responsible for submitting your own photos, the magazine would typically provide specific photography guidelines, such as lighting, background, and styling recommendations. They may ask for multiple angles, close-up details, and image of the items in use. What if your submission is rejected? Submitting to magazine is competitive, and even experienced designers face rejection. If your design isn't accepted, it doesn't mean it's not a great pattern. It may simply not fit the current issue's need. They may have selected something else that's similar to what you sent, or some key elements were missing from your proposal. You may choose to refine your proposal and resubmit your idea for future issues. You can submit it to another magazine that aligns with the style and theme, or self-publish the pattern yourself. Persistence is key when it comes to publishing. The more you refine your proposal and tailor your submission to the right publication, the better your chances of seeing your work in print. I hope you enjoyed this series and will join me for the next one. I would love to see what you've created using the Crochet Designer Blueprint series. Tag me on social media and subscribe to my Patreon so we can get to know each other more. Until then, take care of yourself, and if you can, take care of someone else too. Bye.